Welcome, everybody. I'm super excited for today's episode of Keeping It Real. If you've been around the Keeping It Real family for a long, long time, we've done quite a few of these, and they all sort of take on a slightly different tone. But I am as excited about this one as I have been about anyone that we've ever done. I've got a guest that I'll introduce to you shortly that I confess I was a little bit too much of a fan of in the early days after reading all of his books. Obsessing a little bit about finding someone that spoke my language of business, that valued what I valued and wanted to deliver that value to clients in a way that was profitable, exciting, and compelling. And after devouring physical books and audio books, I had a really unique opportunity to be in a small group mastermind with Daniel and had the privilege to invite him not only to spend some time with us today here on this Keeping It Real, but to spend an extended period of time with us in a couple of weeks at the Real Geeks User Conference this year. So we'll talk more about that later, but let me just do a brief interview and we'll take all of our time having a conversation. But Daniel Priestley is here with us today. He's written some incredible best-selling books. Are we up to 5 now? My count was 4.
There's 4 books that I've written all by myself, and then there's a few that I've co-authored.
Okay, so we'll call it 4 plus that I've devoured that are all bestsellers. And really the fun thing about what we'll talk about today is, Daniel is based in the UK, originally from Australia, and does business all over the world with offices on multiple continents and 4 different locations, plus with partnerships and exciting business stuff going on all over. And as far as I know, absolutely none of that is in residential real estate. I'm sure it's touched in all sorts of ways, but for an audience here that's primarily focused on residential real estate, I'm really excited to introduce most, if not all of you, to Daniel, his philosophy of business, and just his passion and excitement for what a business can do in the life of an owner, of employees and staff, and certainly in the marketplace. So first of all, welcome, Daniel, to the Keeping It Real show.
Hey, I'm thrilled to be on the Keeping It Real show. That's great. It's so lovely to be introduced to your people.
It's a lot of fun for me. It's an honor to have you here. And let me just start with kind of a wide open softball. You can take whatever swing you want at here, but we'll get into the book content in a minute, but take a few minutes, if you don't mind, and just let people know kind of what your business journey has been, kind of how you got started and where you are now. Take a few minutes or however long you really want to, and just let people know
I'll try and do a quick version. Born in Australia, became passionate about entrepreneurship as a teenager, started my first business as an 18-year-old, and then started a company at 21. It was a fast growth business. It took off and went from 0 to $1 million in its first year, and then 1 to 10 million in the couple of years after that. So it was very fast growth business, and it was a lot. It was a lot. All that happened before the age of 25. I exited the business, came to the UK. Australians have this thing about doing time in London and returning to the scene of the crime, I think it's called. Basically I came to London to sort of spend a couple of years in Europe and all of that. I started another business and it took off here in the UK. Anyway, long story short, today I run an entrepreneur accelerator. I have about 3,500 companies that we incubate and accelerate globally. I run a group of companies that we've bought. So I've acquired a group of companies in IT services, film production, book publishing, PR, and fundraising, advertising. So we've got a group structure there. And I've got a tech company. So I've spun out a piece of technology that's a fast growth tech company. We're funded. We're growing very rapidly, something like 5 to 15% month on month. So a good month, we grow the whole business by 15%. A slow month is 5% growth for the month. I guess you could say I'm up to my elbows in entrepreneurship. I've written 4 books on entrepreneurship. And then the 5th book that I co-authored is How to Raise Entrepreneurial Kids. I'm a father of three little kids, a 3-year-old, 4-year-old, and a 7-year-old, and live in Wimbledon, which you may have heard of through the tennis.
Maybe, potentially, if you're not living under a rock. So other than the international history lesson you just got there about Australians in the UK and London, and the unbelievable entrepreneurial journey that hopefully you held on for that ride. And you need to go read the books. We'll talk more about them. And I'll just do a quick tease right up front. We're going to have an hour-ish today to talk. And then Daniel's going to spend time with us on 2 different sessions at the Real Geeks User Conference, which is less than 2 weeks away. So really, really excited, or right about 2 weeks away. Really exciting stuff. And I want you to hear more of the story. But today, what I would love to do is to pick your brain a little bit, Daniel, specifically on, and we can go beyond this, but let's spend some time on your Key Person of Influence book.
Yep.
If you don't mind just letting people know broadly, generally, what's the scope of the book, and then we'll get into how it might actually apply to people in their real estate businesses.
So the idea behind the book is that every industry revolves around key people of influence. Their names come up in conversation. They tend to attract a lot of good quality opportunities. People know that they're connected. People know that they can get things done. As a result, they end up building talented teams. They attract resources if they need them. And they tend to earn more money, have more fun, sell their businesses for a lot more money as well. So essentially what I noticed in 2010 was that every industry was finally tuning into lots of little tiny niches or niches. And each niche had its own key person of influence who was kind of like leading that niche. And I was involved in that. So the business that I started here in the UK, we would bring international speakers from around the world to speak in London. There's a very famous theatre here, which has a few thousand seats, and it's called the Palladium, and the Beatles played at that theatre, and the royal performances are at that theatre. I would hire that theatre, and we'd bring in speakers from around the world. We'd have a couple of thousand people in the audience, and people would always ask me, "Why do you choose the speakers that you choose?" And I would say, well, there's a few key things that they have to have. They've got to have a really good, clear pitch about who they are, what they do, and why it's valuable. They've got to have published a book, or at least like a body of content that we can use to promote. We want them to have products and services that we can partner with them on in order to make some sales. We want them to have a great profile when we Google them. And we want to have a really great ability to do joint ventures or a joint venture or a partnership, so that it isn't just about selling tickets, but it's about, having an actual partnership in place long term with these speakers. And people would love that. They would actually say, "Oh, that's really cool. That's given me a lot of focus around what I need to do." So I ended up writing a book called Key Person of Influence, and I basically unpacked what I was noticing all of these people have in common. So when you go and have a look at the sharks from Shark Tank, they all have that ability to pitch. They've published books, they've got products, they've got profile, they've got partnerships. And you can see this everywhere when you go looking for it. You can actually see plenty of examples of people who have this kind of formula in place. So I wrote the book. It turned into a methodology, a leadership program called the Key Person of Influence Accelerator. 3,500 leaders and entrepreneurs have gone through the program. We've worked with KPMG, we've worked with L'Oreal, we've worked with large software companies, FTSE 100, we've worked with ex-military, Olympians, Paralympians, software engineers, celebrities, celebrity chefs we've created. So it's a fascinating program because it's all around personal brand and positioning.
I love it. And so if you didn't catch that, he's got 5 P's there. Alliteration always wins. 5's a solid number. So if you haven't already bought the book, we'll let you know later how you can get it for free. Daniel's being super generous with this content in that way. So we'll let you know how you can get your hands on it. But, 5 P's, you've mentioned them a couple of times. Let me just pause for 1 second and say, when I read the book, I read it with the lens of residential real estate, right? And I probably read it for the first time, I don't know, 4 or 5 years ago, 3, 4 years ago, something like that. And every time I read a great book, I tell myself, I do a lot of Audible. So I say read, but I listen at like 2x speed. And your voice allowed me to do that. When the narrator's too crazy with their voice, I can't do it that fast. It drives me crazy. So I said, anytime I read a great one, I say, I'm going to read this again. As soon as I finish, I'm going to read it again. And I never actually do it, but I did. I read it twice in a row. It just made perfect sense to me. It felt like it was written for residential real estate. So can you talk I'm happy to pepper some questions here, but can you talk specifically to how you feel that it may apply to someone who's running a business where in a geographically limited market, maybe a small town, maybe a big town, but really in a geo-specific area, they want to become a key person of influence, a well-known leader, authority, trustworthy service provider in an industry that's often thought of as kind of overpaid but under delivering. That's a weird wrinkle I'm throwing in at the end, but I think you'll probably be able to run with that.
Yeah, look, I think that it's when it comes to residential real estate, it's very personal. It's deeply personal for the people who own it and are selling it. It's deeply personal often for the people who are buying it, and it's an emotional as much as a financial decision when it comes time to sell. In some cases, people have lived in the house for many years. It's going to be a make or break moment for them. It's going to be their retirement savings, or it's going to be investment capital to put them into a different strata of wealth. So I guess you would say that people want to trust who they're dealing with. They want to feel a sense of connection. They want to feel that they're cared for, and they want to look for all the markers of trust. So they're going to go looking, does anyone say good things about this person? Has this person been around for a while? Has this person got a unique take on the real estate market? Have they got some sort of thought leadership around how to sell a property for more money? Do they have any thought leadership around this particular area? And it's those kind of ideas that really separate someone. So, personal brand is a bit misunderstood. Some people think of personal brand as, putting your face on a lot of things and just taking a good photo and sticking it on bus shelters and, billboards and all that sort of stuff. And to a degree, that's familiarity and face recognition. But really what I'm talking about is that positioning of authority where people look at you and they say, this person knows what they're talking about. They've taken the time to process their experiences. They've found the common themes. They've developed some intellectual property. They've got an approach or a methodology, and I buy into it. And if they buy into it, then they trust you. If they trust you, then they do the transaction. So I think more than most industries, it's so important because there's so much emotion wrapped up in property. It's big numbers. It's probably the biggest numbers people ever deal with, and it's the place where their kids grew up. So it's always emotional and financial, which means so much trust is required.
Yeah, I agree. And sometimes I make the parallel between residential property and commercial property. Even I always joke that I've got buddies that do massive multi-million-dollar commercial deals, and something could go wrong for $500,000 or $10 million today, and they go home and have dinner and come back to work tomorrow. In our business, a $4 cabinet handle could go wrong, and you're getting accused of wrecking the environment where their wife and children are supposed to be safe. It's a highly emotionally charged deal. I also say this all the time, that if there's not some of that emotional risk, you're probably not doing something that really, really moves people or matters, right? Not to say these other things don't matter, but they're not on the level that really impacts people's life in the moment. And I love that about our business. And that's what I love about how you kind of went into that application. You started with the idea that you've got to build trust, right? And so much of what you're talking about is not, let's trick people into thinking we're famous. It's let's create a sort of a platform, a launch pad of authority and credibility. We call that creating your ACE, your ACE, authority, celebrity, and expertise. And celebrity doesn't mean Kardashian. It means well-known, well thought
recognition,
of, recognizable. Yeah, exactly.
Yep.
So that's why when I came to your content, you were speaking my language, and in many ways you were speaking it more completely and more clearly than even I had been, which is why I think it's so valuable for our listeners today. So if we could just apply all 5 of those P's to residential real estate, I think it would blow people's minds. It would be so valuable today. So we don't have to take them in order, but if you think,
it's easy to go through them in order.
How would, in your mind, because I'd love to get, and here's something that's relevant for you and everybody, but the estate agent model in the UK is wildly different from the real estate agent model in the United States. Fees are different. The level of service and involvement is totally different. And I know a little bit more about that because our team lead, Ian, is originally from north of London and has tons of family experience. And so we've gotten a decent parallel there, but a more thorough provision of service here and typically a higher fee structure. So knowing that, what do you think about pitch in regard to, the big sale I'm making is actually not the contract on the house. It's you hiring me. The sale is me and my service and the value I have, and you choosing me before we go actually connect you with a property or find a buyer for your property. So to me, this is so clear, but I feel like a lot of people struggle with what they're even selling. Therefore, what is their pitch? Does that make sense?
Yeah. So there's a number of things that make a great pitch. The first thing is around clarity. So people want to have a really clear understanding. What is it that you actually do for me? What is the functional nature of what your relationship is? Now, here's the funny thing. If you work in any industry, it's absolutely obvious to you what you do, right?
Yep,
if I'm a dentist, I know what dentistry is about. If I'm a real estate agent, I know what being a real estate agent entails. I know what the daily to-do list is of a real estate agent. And I know what happens immediately after we sign the deal. And I know what getting going means. But put yourself in the shoes of the person who hasn't sold a house for 15 years.
Right.
And they don't know what your daily to-do list is. So part of the pitch is giving them clarity around, here's what I'm going to do for you. This is what my job is. This is what I actually do for you. Here's the list, the to-do list of all the things. So that's called clarity. The next thing that people want to understand is authority or credibility. And this is about how many deals have you done? What certifications do you have? Who do you work under? Who have you trained under? Who have you learned through? What methodologies are you applying to the role? Now think about it a bit like this. Imagine you go in for a surgery and the doctor says, all right, get your clothes off, jump on the table. We're gonna get going. And you're kind of like, whoa, I'm feeling really vulnerable, right? Imagine they instead take the time and say, hey, look, today's surgery is what's known as a minor surgery. It's very normal for us to do several of these a day. This is something that has 100% success rate with. This is, this is not something that you should be nervous about. I've done hundreds of these. My team are extremely focused and alert and ready for this today. We train for this and you've got nothing to worry about. So that's them telling you a bit about their qualifications, their history, their credibility. And what is the net effect of that? It puts you at ease. It makes you feel comfortable to undergo something that requires trust. So real estate agents very often skip past this. They don't tell people, hey, I've sold 40 houses in this area, or I've done this. I've written for these publications. I've published this report. I was interviewed as part of this local real estate location analysis report that happened. None of that stuff gets talked about. It's just kind of taken for granted. Or people might be afraid to toot their own horn, right? To do that. Okay, so that's the first two things. The next part of a great pitch is called problem and solution. So problem and solution is where you actually articulate what could go wrong and what problem exists that you solve. So here's the other thing. When people are selling their house for the first time in a while, they don't know all the things that can go wrong in that deal process.
Right.
So they think, for them, they might have a misconception that selling a real estate deal is not too much different than selling anything, that, you just you list it. How hard is it to fill in an online listing these days, right? Take some photos, and stick it on the website, and hey, presto, you've sold the house, right? They might have that misconception. But what they might not realize is that there's actually an upper limit of the range of what a house can sell for, and there's a lower limit where people can negotiate really well and actually get you to agree to a sale that's not advantageous. They might not know that deals fall through. They might not know that there's certain legal procedures that have to happen in order for the deal to complete. So all of these things should be really clearly explained. These are the things that could go wrong with the property. Another key thing is that there are certain things that are not necessarily dependent upon the property, but information and searches that help add value to the property. So if you can explain all of these issues as they appear, and then say, when you engage with me as a real estate agent, here's how we solve all of that. So you're going through a process where you're actually explaining to people problem solution. Next thing that people want to know is that your heart's in it, that you actually have skin, that you got a passion for it or a skin in the game. And that can come through the nonverbal communication, can come through in many ways, but it's also worth articulating, what is your passion for the local area? What is your passion for real estate? What is your passion for getting this deal done? But to actually articulate what we call the why. What's the bigger why for you to be in this? And then opportunity, next steps, and leave people feeling on a high on the essence. So great pitch combines all of that. I would say that anyone I've worked with, the longer they've been in an industry, the less they're actually pitching. They're just kind of in a momentum, and they just get in the habit, or they get lazy, or they just don't want to toot their horn, or for them it just becomes the water that they swim in, so they're just not focused on sharing it. So it's really important to just get in the habit of scripting a pitch so that people understand all the things that they need to understand.
I love it. First, I love that I can throw out a question and you can hammer like 8 key principles that are all totally legit. There's no way we're going to have enough time today to cover all of what I would want to cover with just these 5 principles. But I love that you referenced 2 totally relevant points there. Number 1 being that people don't clarify or script out their pitch. And on the other end of the spectrum, people just sort of act as if or assume they've been doing this long enough that they don't need to. And both of those things are wrong. You do need to do it, and there's value in it. And if you don't care about it for personal benefit, which I think is foolish, because your success leads to the ability to serve more people, you ought to for the client's clarity, because it's a complex process that they're almost always overwhelmed by, but almost never admit to you that they're overwhelmed by, right? So walking them through some process, right? Now, I wish I had time to spiral off on all the things I'd love to comment on, but we have for our company here a lot of this in place. And even going through just a mastermind experience with you recently that wasn't even keyed in on this specific content, you mentioned like it's hard for us to see our own stuff, right? That's the pool you've been swimming in. I teach this stuff. We coach agents and consult with agents all over the country, and I'm going through your stuff and I'm like, dang it, we've lost touch with that. We got to clean that up. But that's why I love stuff like this. So that's enough of me talking, but we probably can go a little quicker on publish.
Sure.
But I will say this, I love your points on publishing. We're big believers in it. I've written several books and we help agents publish. We have a little publishing company wing of our coaching group. And for folks that are coming to the event, we're going to talk a lot more about that. Recently, we did this guy with a bunch of people to create authority. We'll talk more about that later, but I'm just proving that I believe what this book says and we follow it. And I think others should too. So how would you see publishing applying to a real estate agent?
Well, the research says that people consume about 7 hours worth of content or 11 significant pieces of content before they feel a sense of trust and before they can comfortably feel that they're educated on a topic or that they're up to date on a topic. So when I think of publish, I think about, have you got 7 hours worth of stuff sitting out there that I can find? So here's a great example. If I wanted to really be blown away by a real estate professional, I go on YouTube. They've got some great thought leadership around the local area. They're talking through what's the development plan for the area. They've been to talk to the council. They know what the council's vision for the future is. The local authority. They understand what's happening at the local schools. They understand what's happening with major employers in the area. They understand what's happening with real estate trends and universities and campuses. So they've got that knowledge, and they're sharing that knowledge in what would be called a thought leadership format. So they might have recorded some podcasts. They might have put it on video. All of that is published content. They could then also have a report. They could have a book. They could have a chapter in a book. They could publish in local press. So there's all these different ways that we can publish now. But essentially, if I wanted to fully trust someone, it turns out that the research suggests that I want to read 11 things they've written or consume 11 pieces of content. And I want to spend up to 7 hours feeling like I've done my research. The person who wins the deal is the person who owns most of the 7 hours. Here's the funny thing. Have you ever watched a TV show or a TV series that relates to real estate?
Oh,
like
yes.
$1 million listing or something like that?
Right. Yeah.
Right. So it's kind of weird that about 5 episodes in, you really start to feel like you know the characters. Like you kind of, if you met them, you'd be pretty stoked to meet them. You'd feel like you could pick up a conversation and start talking about things that you've connected with. That's the power of published content. And anyone who's been on any of those shows, their business explodes because people feel like they've known them.
Right. That's why we do a radio show here locally. Same thing. It's a form of publishing.
Yeah.
We do print, we do audio, and we do some in between, which is, we could take a million different directions on how to leverage that. But the point being, you've got to be doing some of that.
Yep.
And some of it is much easier than people think. And I know that's why you guys help entrepreneurs publish books and things as well. And we've done it just for real estate agents, but there's a bunch of stuff right there that we've done. But the point I'm making is, I think much like you said before, some people just assume, well, I've been doing this for a while, I got all kinds of stuff out there, but it's not always packaged in a way that someone who's checking you out would view it with the same authoritative, trustworthy, impressive lens that you want them to. And it's not as hard as it used to be to do that. And it can be a fun and exciting and profitable deal. And oftentimes, if you put in the work, which can be minimal, to do something like this, this can then turn into dozens, if not hundreds, of other publications of one form or another. And in our business, almost all that can be applied online and offline, and I recommend both. But I love it. I think we've done a pretty good job of kind of making the point there. So what's next? And
product.
Go ahead.
Yeah. So next is product. So the product is about the outcome that the customer wants and your ability to consistently deliver the outcome. So when businesses operate, they think in terms of inputs, so their time and their service and their availability. When customers buy, they actually think in outcomes. So for example, the customer really doesn't care if you're available 24/7. The customer doesn't care how much time it takes. The truth is, if you spoke to most people with a piece of real estate to sell, if you said, what's the upper limit what's the upper target that you wish you could get? And they say $900,000. You say, great, if I can get you $901,000 in one phone call, would you be happy with the service that I offered you? And they're like, hell yes. And it's like people don't care, right? They think in outcomes. And it's like, here's a question. If I was rude and arrogant, but I still got you 901,000, and let's say I didn't even return your phone call. Let's say I didn't return your emails, I didn't return your phone call, I still get you the absolute highest price. Would you forgive me, move on with it, and be happy with the highest price? The truth is, most people actually would. They'd find it funny that you would say that, but they would actually care. They care most about the outcome. So here's the thing. The business mindset is to think about, how do I consistently reverse engineer the perfect outcome that the customer wants? So in the real estate business, now bear in mind, I don't know what the legalities are and all of that sort of stuff, but right. I would be thinking about having a black book of obviously finance, insurance people, every peripheral service that's required to close the deal. I'd be thinking about having a checklist of things that I insist upon. Like if I was in the real estate business, here's some of the things I would say. I'd say, I'm not going to sell your house unless you replace the front door, right? The front door has to be beautiful. When you walk in that door, I want a brand new shiny front door. I don't want marks on it, right? I want the carpets to have been cleaned. I want to get the highest price for you. There's a checklist of things that I need you to agree to. If you don't agree to them, I'm not even going to try and sell your house. And the reason for that is because it's not because I'm a bad guy. It's because I want you to get the highest price. I know what works. I know that there's a bunch of little things that actually achieve a higher price and achieve a faster sale, make your life easier, make my life easier. So things like that. I don't know if you're allowed to do that stuff as a real estate
we
agent.
absolutely do that. We have a 7-step proprietary marketing system that dictates the things. Some of that we do for them, but if they don't agree to it, then we don't move forward. So yeah, no, you're speaking the right language. Keep going.
I'm just making this stuff up, but yeah, it's spot on, right? So that's part of the product. The product is that I've got the intellectual property, the know-how, and the thought leadership to do that. And, obviously I've got photographers, I've got perhaps staging the property, the ability to do that. So these are all the things that go into the product. Now, one thing that's really important to the customer is something called collateral. Collateral is brochures, diagrams, little like timelines, maps that people have. So like an information pack. So one of the things you can do to productize anything is just have a better information pack. So when you sit down and say, look, here's our 7-step approach, here's our list of suppliers, this is the before and afters of all the projects we've worked on over the last 12 months. So this is what the house looked like before and after. And just kind of like making sure that people feel a great sense that we're all pointed towards the same outcome here, that we're focused on an outcome, and that's the product that I sell.
So I love this concept of product. Because almost nobody does that in our industry. It's like, well, we're a service business. What are you talking about? Product. The idea of productizing their intellectual property, their process, their results is really foreign to a lot of people. This is one of the things we go through with all of our coaching clients is name it, package it, create it, make it your own. And in the world of residential real estate, especially here in the United States, for a long time, Keller Williams has been the brokerage model that has really done this the best. They've got their own language. They don't have franchise offices. They have market centers. They don't have top producing agents. They have mega agents. They're doing their product is their service to agents right now. Yep. Their agents do all sorts of different things to the consumer, good, bad, and ugly. But I absolutely agree for you to be able to, brand, name, package your services into a product so that your consumer or your prospect can view it as, I want that thing, not this nebulous, maybe possible outcome, but this thing, which is how I get the outcome. Now, people want to talk about how that's going to transform their life even more than just the quantifiable outcome. And they want to talk about the outcome way more than the process. But there's an art to weaving all that together in a way that they know what the heck is going on and why you're better or different than the other person. To your point, even if you're obnoxious, even if you're rude, even if you don't return the phone call. Now, none of us are going to do that, but
of course, yeah.
But the exaggerated point helps make the point, which is they're focused on the results. But if you can't convince them that you can get them the result, then they don't care.
And if you flip it and you say, if you're the most lovely, polite, wonderful person in the world, but can't get the sale, right, then that's not great. That doesn't work for them. Now, here's a real kind of mindset flip as well. Part of the product is the fact that you can find a buyer. So here's an interesting productization step. And that is that if part of the product is finding the buyer, if a real estate agent had a monthly workshop on Zoom where they said, this is a workshop called Moving to Wimbledon. And what we do is we talk about the key streets, the key restaurants, we talk about the schools, we talk about lifestyle, we talk about service providers here, internet speeds, and we literally do a Moving to Wimbledon workshop every month. For anyone interested in moving to Wimbledon, we run a workshop on that. And it's like, cool, right. We've got a workshop.
Well, and I can't wait till the conference where you and I get to discuss Score App a little bit more, which, just so everybody knows, is some of the technology that Daniel was talking about earlier. But so Real Geeks, the audience we have, not everybody here is a Real Geeks user, but the CRM website platform that many of us use, in a way, creates that regular lead flow of buyer interest, predominantly buyer, certainly lots of sellers, but predominantly buyers. And then in addition to that, some people are literally doing webinars or seminars. We have a radio show, we have a YouTube show, like all these different things that you could do. You can show them your lead count in your deal. But if you want to give like a 1-minute quick explanation of what Score App is, then I'll give a quick hint of how I'm using it to do what you just said.
So ScoreUp is the software that creates online quizzes, online surveys, online report generation that is customized. So if ever you've been to a website that says, "Are you an introvert or an extrovert?" or "Which Harry Potter character are you?" or like which what's are you on track to run a marathon? Should you improve your health score? Like, or any of those kind of things that you can find online. If you've ever clicked through a few of those quizzes, what's happening is that they're collecting a lot of data. They're giving you a score, giving you a report, but also they're finding out information about you. So we have a sophisticated piece of software designed to make it really simple and really easy for any business to become a data business and to collect more data and to do more qualification screening and make more sales. So like, for example, you can have a real estate score, you can have a house saleability score, you can have a should you move to Wimbledon score, all of those kind of things. You can just create some scorecards around them, and they become extremely good lead generation magnets.
Yeah, and I'm at the conference again. I would tell everybody now. I would love to talk to Daniel about this stuff all day long. We just don't have time, but I'm going to show people how I'm using ScoreApp in our business in conjunction with Real Geeks in a way it's been a ton of fun. We're using it for lead generation, but just as much, if not maybe more, for kind of lead dispositioning, like figuring out who's warm, who's ready, who's most engaged. And one of our big ones that people love is our home buyer readiness score. Are you ready to buy a house? Right? It's like, 82%. But the cool thing there is people enjoy the process of giving you all this information instead of typically feeling this arm's length reluctance where I don't want to tell you all that. This is like, what's my score? Am I green, yellow, or red? Did I make the cut? It's just a simple but masterful way of doing it. And the technology makes it easy for people like me that don't want to spend all day in the back end of any deal. So anyway, we'll talk more about that at the event. And if you have questions about how to get there and how to find that, just shoot me a note or comment here and I'll make sure everybody gets all the links. But the next one, I mean, I like all of them. Obviously, I'm a big fan of the content, but the next one I think might be for a lot of people the most powerful piece of the whole darn thing. You want to tell folks what's next?
Yeah, the next one is profile. And we're seeing a lot of real estate people who are doing very, very well with profile. So here in the UK, I've got a friend who's in real estate, very successful real estate business. And he's got a daughter she's 23 years old. And he advised her to start an Instagram account showing big, beautiful homes and basically doing show throughs where she does these kind of fast motion, you get to see through the whole house in under 30 seconds. Right. And she rocks up and she's sort of like, hey, today I'm going to show you this place. And she runs around the house and they follow her and it all plays out really quickly. And this account has gone explosive, tens of thousands of people watching it. And she's now in a position that these huge houses, $5 to $15, $20 million houses, they basically fly her in and she does a show through on the Instagram account and the damn thing sells real fast because she's got so many people who are interested in property. And, she does it, she makes it fun. She makes it engaging. She does a whole story around it. She makes it cool. And basically, she's gone and built herself this incredible reality. Her dad does all the legals and the behind the scenes stuff, but they are shifting seriously big properties as a result of it's Summer Newman, if you want to check her out. But, she's selling properties in Bali, in Spain, in Mallorca, Ibiza, exclusive areas of the UK. And it's basically it's hard work. You got to really pay if you want to get these guys to come in and sell the house because they can sell it top money real fast.
If you guys don't take notes on these things, you're crazy. I'm finding her profile right now. I think anybody that shows up at these things is already ahead of the game. But if you're not taking notes and learning so that you can actually take away and implement something, then that's just a huge waste. So I just followed Summer Newman, one of about 13 people I follow on Instagram. That is not where I take full advantage of the profile piece of this. I'll just say for real estate agents in the United States, if you're not taking full advantage of your Google My Business, Google local profile, you're absolutely wasting what is otherwise an almost free resource. The only reason it's not completely free is it takes a slight amount of your time and energy.
Let me also bring it down to the ground a little bit as well. You mentioned Google. These days, everyone who does a deal with anyone, they Google them. They Google you. So here's what has to happen. It's got to be when I Google you, it's got to be some good links on page one. It's got to be some nice professional photos. It's got to be hopefully something in the news that's positive, that you're commenting on something in the news. And here's what you absolutely want to try and avoid. Avoid any of this like social media nonsense. Like strip away all the politics, strip away all the hot topics that people argue about on Twitter. If I go to someone's profile and I click on their profile and suddenly it's like all these fights that they're having on Twitter and all this sort of stuff, that is going to be really hard for me to do business with them. I don't know whether it's right to say this, but I've actually not hired people because of what I've seen on their social media profile. We Google people before we do job interviews, and there's been some pretty off stuff that you see, especially people who've not put any thought into it. It's like, we can't have you on the team if that's the first thing that pops up when we see you.
Right. And I don't think we need to spend really any time on it, but reviews in the current culture that we live in are part of that profile piece, right? So, Daniel was talking about, media mentions, professional photos, quality links, video content,
Google reviews. Yep.
But if then you've got a 2.3 star review, then no one cares about any of the rest of that stuff, right? And the sad reality, and there's tons of human psychology oriented research on this stuff, but people trust a gang of strangers on the internet more than they trust their neighbor now, which is terrifying and a really sad statement about our world. But
what's also really horrible is that if you've got 55-star reviews and 1 or 2 1-star reviews, where do people click first?
Always the most interesting. Now, there's a whole philosophy on whether actually I would rather have a 4.9 star rating than a 5. And we just rolled up back to 5. I was like, dang it. That's a whole nother thing. But okay, so that's profile. And people understand what that means. It doesn't mean literally just like your bio profile. It's what do I see when I go check you out, right?
Yeah.
What is at a glance, what can I find out about you? And I might not read the whole article. I might read the headline. I might not watch the whole video, but I might watch the first few seconds. What does that tell me about you? Does it build trust? Is there authority? And is it compelling in any way? And I would spend hours talking about what compelling means in our world, but we'll leave it there for now. So moving right along, we might have some time at the end for questions. So those of you checking us out on streaming, hang with us. If you've got a question or a thought, we might get to those. If not, we'll spend some time together at the conference. But go ahead, Daniel.
So the final one is partnership. And the spirit of partnership is thinking win-win. Having good structure, right? So you want, when it comes to partnership, it's a mindset or it's a spirit of intent, and it's a structure, an actual structure to follow. So having good partnerships around. For estate agents, making sure that you're building partnerships in the community is a big one. So, when people ask their school head teacher, thinking of selling the property, who around here is a great agent in the local area, your name should come up. And that's just spirit of partnership. It's going to come up because you've been a resource to the school as well. So thinking about the idea that you're in partnership with the community, you're in partnership with other businesses in the community, you're in partnership with a good, compelling future of the community. So that's kind of like high level spirit of intent that being an agent carries with it a responsibility to be a custodian for a better future for the local residents and for the people that you're actually part of the community. And then the second part is just putting structures in place. So you can have formal and informal structures. You can have informal structures like having a regular dinner that you put together, or a curated lunch that you put together, where you're bringing people together with the spirit of not trying to sell stuff, but just, forging relationships. And you can have formalized structures. So you can have a partnership with a finance company that provides the finance, and you're their exclusive provider and they're your exclusive provider. So those are kind of structured partnerships as well.
Yeah. I love the concept of partnership. I think most people approach it with total overwhelm, right? Like, I've got to go sign a formal partnership with a business partner. And how am I supposed to do that? And it's super risky. That's a very small part, maybe not even a part of at all of what you're saying and what you communicate in the book. I love your first example of just being known at the school, in the area, right? Being highly thought of, being trusted. But I do think there are some formal and informal, right? Formal doesn't mean like we own an entity together. It could, but it probably means, finance, mortgage, inspectors, appraisers, surveyors, title insurance, all these things. And we encourage agents to have all those things. And those are like semi-formal, right? Like, you might have them contributing some marketing dollars. You might have them supporting some of your events, but it may just be, I think you're great at what you do. We have a rhythm because we work together a lot. But I do think people should think about this more instead of just going with the flow and just working with people that are good at their jobs. Some forethought and some structure and selling this on the front end.
Here's a really simple informal one. 4 times a year, once a quarter, put together a private dining meeting, and just invite people in the industry to come and have lunch with you. As a for whatever reason, you're going to pick a nice restaurant. We're going to get together some of the good people in the industry, and we're going to put together a private dining. And we're just going to look for ways we're going to go around the table, just introduce what we're up to, what we're hoping. I've got this friend of mine called Ollie. Ollie puts together these brilliant events. He selflessly invites his top contacts to a really nice little spot. And then he just curates and he does a lovely introduction for each person. And he says, what are you working on right now? And what help would you benefit from? He goes around. I actually met my wife at one of his events.
Nice.
It was really great. So I got a great partnership out of it. But what's funny is that the whole community would move mountains for Ollie, right? If Ollie picked up the phone and said, hey, I need some help, it's like, what do you need? Because he's been doing this for years. He's been putting these on for 10 years where he just looks for ways to get good people in a room. What help do you need? What are you working on? And that's the spirit of partnership. It's not even a formalized partnership. But then, you're right. You can go right through to forming an LLP together, forming a company together, and having a whole entity together. So there's a whole spectrum there.
Have you read the book You're Invited?
No, but it's
John Levy or John Levy. Like it's almost what you just explained about Ollie, except he's doing it with like globally influential people, members of the royal family, former NBA basketball stars, business. And there's a real cool element where they don't know who each other are until the end of the evening. But it's basically these curated meals where they have to prepare a meal together for the host. And it creates a bonding and sort of a project for them. And there's a side element where they roll out like new ventures through it. It's really cool. It's called You're Invited by John Levy.
Sounds great.
Yeah, really, really cool book. Okay, so those are the 5 principles. I love the fact that you have the ability to fly through them that way, but for it to still be clearly communicated. So again, if you're tuning into this live or if you're catching the recording and you're not taking notes, I just want to be clear that you're doing this wrong. That's a waste of such an opportunity. Okay. First of all, real quick, if you want to get a copy of the book for free, Daniel's been really generous to let us do this, but if you'll go to the user conference website, which is urguc.com, short for Unofficial Real Geeks User Conference, urguc.com, and then go to the speakers page. Daniel's photo's on there. Now you'll recognize him. And then just click his photo and it'll link you to a free download for the Key Person of Influence book, the entire PDF of the book. You can also go get it on Audible or get yourself a hard copy wherever books are sold. I probably have 25 copies, Daniel, because I send them to all of our coaching clients at one point or another, as well as oversubscribed and others, which we'll talk more about at the event. Now, I know some of the questions that are brewing in people's minds right now is like, okay, So it sounds like a lot for me to go put all 5 of those things in place. Am I just a total waste of space if I don't have all that in place? So how would somebody prioritize implementing this into their business if really, at least on a formal level, none of this is in place right now? What would you recommend?
So the first thing I'd say is to just know that the juice is going to be worth the squeeze. So when you look at income distribution in all industries at the moment, the top 5% is massively overrepresented. So essentially, if you're in the top 5% of your industry, you get a significant premium for being at the top end of the industry. And it should be a goal. I think it should be a goal to try and at least get yourself to the top 5% of an industry. And if you're in an industry with 100,000 people, there's 5,000 spots at the top, right? So there's plenty of room to move up to the top. And it also sets a high standard for everyone in the industry. So it's good for everyone to do this. I have a dear friend of mine who is a Paralympian. He's got visually impaired eyesight, and he is a cyclist. He does a tandem cycle with a sighted pilot on the front of the bike, and he rides. And he just won a gold medal at the Paralympics. He works for 4 years, where he works out so hard that he almost vomits to train, and he does this for 4 years between Paralympic Games, with his eye on the prize of 1 medal. And there's going to be 100 countries represented, and he's got 1 medal to win. And if he doesn't get it, there's 4 years between this. Right. And then I hear people in industries going, "Oh, top 5%. Oh, I don't want to work and get the top 5%." Right. And I think, come on, like the first thing is the rewards are worth it. The juice is worth the squeeze. Every industry is ripe for disruption right now. So there's plenty of non-conventional strategies that massively pay off. Like Summer Newman, the story we talked about before. So where do you start? I always encourage people to go through, improve your pitch, start publishing some content, sharpen up the product, raise your profile. Now you've got a good product and you've got a good pitch, and then put together more partnerships to scale. So going through in that order is the natural order.
Yeah, I would just tell people, start making progress on all of them, right? I always say entrepreneurship is making a bunch of messes and then deciding which ones to clean up, right?
Totally. Directionally correct.
So I love the thought of, hey, tomorrow, grab the book, write down these 5 bullets and then just start making progress, right? There is no magical order. Now, Daniel just gave you kind of a logical order, but look, if you start working on your profile tomorrow and you don't do any of the others, you'll benefit from that, right? If you start really focusing on your partnerships for the next year before you move on to something else, you'll benefit from that. Yeah. I love what you said about the top 5%. Here's the good news for all the residential real estate agents listening. There's about 100,000 people in the top 5% of our jacked up industry. So that's good news. Aim for the top 1%. You can do it. I believe in you. But that's been our model. And to your point, and I know I can't wait to talk about your oversubscribed content with people. We have a whole session at the conference called How to Get People to Line Up to Do Business with You. But which we've done. That was our natural instinct, and we further developed it with your information. But we also are able to charge a premium. Now, for some people in real estate, that just scares the crud out of them. It's like, oh, I can't do that. Yes, you can, especially if people feel like you've over-delivered, and that becomes your reputation in the marketplace, which goes back to some of the points we've already made is, hey, like Daniel said, this guy's not going to sell your house if you're not going to replace your front door. Don't even call him. That's, for some people, that scares them. Oh, people are out there saying, don't call me. That's a good thing if they're going to be non-compliant, non-ideal clients, because some people hear that and they're like, whoa, that's my guy. I like the sound of that. And that's going to be your ideal client. And if you're compensated better, you can serve more, you can give more, you can hire, you can do more for your clients. So I'm a big believer in all of it. I would say, as someone who has read the book and implemented not all of it, but all aspects, all 5 principles in one level, one degree or another, and then inadvertently retaught it. One of the easiest places to improve right now is profile, because you have things like a Google profile, your local realtor board profile, your Zillow profile, things like that. Now there's some strategy within that, but I mean, within a matter of minutes, you can improve the quality of your photos and your descriptions and your links. You're literally talking about almost zero effort there. And Google gives you for $0 the ability to change what people view from anywhere in the world that are looking in your locale. That is unbelievably powerful. Now, if you're thinking about publication, and on some level, that is, posts on your profile, but then you can also do things like this for less money than you think and less time than you think. And there are people like me and others out there that are happy to help you do that. So I love the concepts. I think they're totally applicable and implementable for people in our business. We don't have a ton of time left, but is there anything else on the tip of your tongue, Daniel, that you just feel like people overcomplicate or that would be super helpful, based on the kind of the philosophy of key person of influence?
More broadly, I would say that we've all been through disruption in the last 2 years. And it's really important to recognize that disruption always creates opportunity. There's always opportunity that sits in the wake of disruption. Yes. And it's fair to say that there's more money out there than ever before. I think in the US, they pumped $2 trillion into the marketplace, right? So huge amounts of liquidity in the marketplace. And there's more, there's more ability to communicate than ever before. There's more people looking for a different kind of changing up their lifestyle than ever before. There's a lot of social mobility, right? People have made money on crypto and they want to buy a bigger house. And there's people who have become an influencer on Instagram and they've got $100,000 a year from selling sponsorships to their posts and they want to have a bigger house or a nicer house, right? There are people who are retiring. The baby boomers are in full swing retirement. Every single day in the USA right now is a world record for the number of people who are over the age of 70. And there's a world record every single day for the number of people turning 70 that day. Mm-hmm. So this is the other end of the baby boom. Beatlemania is now retirement mania. So what do people do when they want to sell it? When they want to retire, they sell their house and they want to change their lifestyle a bit. Their kids are out. They want more manageable property. So there's going to be a lot of transactions. There's a lot of reasons for people to transact. The issue is always trust. So, everything I'm talking about sounds tactical, but deep underneath it is that people want to trust that they're dealing with the best person they could possibly be dealing with. Just make it easy. Make it easy for people to know that you're good. If you're watching a show like this, if you've spent an hour watching this, you're a good person. You're a good person who cares enough that you're trying to invest in helping and developing your business and your brand. Just let people know that you're that kind of person. The other thing too is I would say radical empathy. Put yourself in other people's shoes. So always just put yourself into the shoes of the person selling, put yourself into the shoes of the person buying. What would you want to see if you were them? What do you want to see? If you were Googling what would you be excited by what you see? Sometimes I once gave this to a real estate agent. I said, radical empathy. If you Googled yourself, what would you want to see? And he said, I would want to see a video of me talking to the local high school teacher, high school principal. I want to see a video of me talking to the local restaurant. And he did it. He went out and did it. So he actually went out with a camera and he said, I'm a real estate agent in the area. I thought it would be worth having a chat to the local head teacher of the local school and about what this school is all about. What's the values of the school? Did that. 3 or 4 local restaurants. I just wanted to shine the light on local restaurants and how great the restaurants here are at this particular location. And he said, it's been mind-blowing. Like people have gone, you're not just an agent, you're helping us to achieve a lifestyle, understand the community that we're going into. And, it was just that radical empathy that led to that insight.
Yeah, I love it. And I think the only bow I would tie on that at the end is, like you mentioned earlier, people are afraid, rightfully so, to, air their political arguments all over the internet. Good decision. Let's be careful. but it's also really valuable to be clear on what you value, what your values are, right? So to the point of the video, I went and asked the school what are their values. People, that relationship element is massive, and I think that's kind of what you're getting at, is just to be genuine and authentic and engaging. And if someone doesn't like you, you probably didn't want to do business with them anyway, so that's okay. Now, not because you made some ridiculously offensive comment or started a fight on the internet, but because you said, here's who we are, here's who we serve, here's what we care about, here's what we're passionate about, here's what we go to battle for our clients in this way. The right people will gravitate towards that. So I love it. I wish we had more time. We don't. So we've told people where to go to get the free book. Is there any place else you would want to send people if they just want to find more info about you or what you have to offer the world?
That's a great place to start. Let's just give people one thing. Go there, grab the book, have a read. I think it's always worth kind of like if you've been bitten by something, just to run deep with it for a little bit and see if you can focus on the action rather than, too much stuff. So that book's got lots of good resources in it. Grab that book.
And you can get it at urguc.com. We'll post a link under where this video is streaming everywhere, but urguc.com. That's short for Unofficial Real Geeks User Conference. Go to the speakers tab, click on Daniel's photo, and we'll get it to you. If all else fails and you have not yet grabbed a ticket for the conference, you can get a ticket for the conference at that same website. And Daniel's going to be spending kind of 2 sessions with us. One, we'll be going into a lot more depth on the technology we talked about, the Score app technology, and talking about how that you can use that in your business. And then the other one, we're going to talk about another one of his books that I love. Not specifically the book, but the content from it, called Oversubscribed, and how you can have more demand for your services than you could ever supply, and all the beautiful, amazing things that come from that. So thank you so much for your time today, Daniel. I loved it. I hope everybody else did. I'm getting notes in the chat over here that there's just tons of positive feedback in all the streams, just that people appreciated your time and the content and the value. So folks will have a chance to engage with you more. October 19th, 20th, and 21st is the conference. We'll be spending a lot of time with you on the 20th. We're really excited about that. So thanks for your time. Appreciate you being here.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Awesome.